Hello, everyone. I'm Jean-Claude BeyondMystic, and welcome to this very special report number 6 in the series here of Death of the Petrodollar. With me today is none other than Mr. Bill Holter. You can find him at JS Sinclair or jsmindset.com. And of course, at Hi-Ho Silver, Bill Holter, he is, of course, a precious metals broker. Let's give him a big warm welcome back to the show. Bill, how's it going, man?
Thanks for having me, JC.
I love having you on, Bill. We always have a good time. And I want to let the audience know here today, you and I have about a 3 or 4 minute lag in our connection here today. We're going to do our very best not to speak over each other. And we do apologize for that. It's just the nature of our internet connection. Both Bill and I live outside of in the country, and our connection isn't always the best. So Jim, thank you so much for joining us here today. And thank you everyone in the audience here in this continuation of our series here, developing this story of the death of the petrodollar. I'm so happy to have Bill on to have his take, and also perhaps Jim Sinclair's take. And we'll get to that in a minute here, and all the content that those guys are producing on jsmindset.com. But I want you, Bill, to maybe rehash here for the audience how you have been positioning here the death of the petrodollar, the petrodollar here over the last couple of years on your subscription-based service, and how you tie in this event here that happened last week. This is, of course, the agreement between Saudi Arabia and Russia, potentially here supplanting the agreement that was made with Kissinger and Nixon once we got off the gold standard. So start setting the stage here for the audience as to how and why this connects the dot here to the death of the petrodollar, and why it's so important for everyone to really pay attention right now.
Well, first, what we've been adamant about for years is to get out of the system. In other words, you want to get as much of your capital out of the system. You want to be as self-reliant and not reliant on the system, if you will. The idea is the currency is going to die. The dollar is dying. And I had no idea you were going to start with this article, and that's the article I was going to start to mention to you. It's extremely important, and I think there was less coverage of the Saudi-Russia deal than almost anything I could think of over the last year or more. It's extremely important. As you mentioned, Kissinger and Nixon did the deal back in, 1972, 73, where Saudi Arabia would sell oil, but they would only sell it for dollars. And they took those dollars and reinvested back into U.S. treasuries. So it was a double whammy plus for the U.S. It supported the dollar, and it also funded our deficits. The timing of this deal, and I'll also mention China in a little bit, but the timing of this deal, what happened just the week before last when they signed this? We left Afghanistan and looked like a bunch of bumbling fools. So this deal gets signed. Now, over the last 3 or 4 days, China has done a couple things. One thing, they are, if you want to call it, turning their backs on the Western way of life. They're limiting their kids, and I think it's a good thing, but they're limiting their kids to 3 hours a week playing video games. They actually had, out of the military, a statement regarding, and I don't know if this is the right translation or not, but basically saying no sissy boys. In addition, Evergrande, which is one of the largest real estate developers in China, who owe over $300 billion of debt, they're failing on that. They've not made some payments. Their bonds have actually been halted in trading. And I think you could look at that as a giant pinprick to the asset balloon. And, people are questioning, will there be any type of contagion? And I think that's really a dumb question, because everything is so intertwined today. If China even just slows down, it will affect credit. And this looks to be it looks to be a major credit event, similar to what happened with Lehman Brothers back in 2008. I can't hear you, Jason. Are you on mute?
Sorry about that. Yes, I was muting my microphone to prevent the echo. Sorry about that. Yes, so I was just posting here those two articles for the audience to see what you were talking about here. Yes, China, not only are they de-dollarizing, but they're also moving away from the Western style of life and Hollywood. So there's big reverberations happening now. And as Dick Allgaier and the remote viewing guys were saying, it's not just the death of the dollar, it's the death of everything. So we're losing confidence in everything around us. You just talked about here the incredible shit show in Afghanistan. People are losing confidence in this pretendency, if you want to even call it that. And on top of that, we're seeing moves around the world now, and you and I have discussed this before, that the world was de-dollarizing at a rapid clip. Now, in my last interview here with Rob Kirby last week, he says, JC, because I asked him, what advice do you have for the audience here moving forward in this transition here in the death of the petrodollar? And he said something to the effect that, hey, if you don't realize everybody else is already de-dollarized. If you haven't de-dollarized yet, you're the only last fool standing in the room. So this is how quick this event is happening right now. So can you speak to that a little bit here in terms of the timing? Gunlock put a piece out last week, I believe, on Zero Hedge, where he was mapping out or the roadmap to the death of the petrodollar. And what David Morgan and all these guys are telling me is like, the event has already occurred. We just don't know it yet. How would you frame that for the audience, Bill?
Right. Well, first off, the event has already occurred. All you have to do is look at a chart of money supply. Money supply has exploded over the last 12 to 18 months. And the reason they had to do that, they had to liquefy the system because back in September of 2019, we were having the credit problems in the repo market. So they had to flood the system. Now we're at the point where all of that flooded liquidity it's wearing off, or it's worn off. So what you're looking at now is you're looking at like a rocket trajectory that's already reached the peak. It's rolling over and ready to start to crash and burn. The crash and burn event is a credit event. Credit left and right is going to default. Everybody is focused on inflation, but they're focused on, if you want to call it, traditional inflation. What I think you're going to see is going forward with basically with the economies rolling over and debt being too large to be serviced, you're going to see debt defaults. And what that's going to do is that's going to blow up the asset bubbles. You're going to see stock markets collapse, real estate markets collapse. You're going to see asset markets across the board collapse. But that also affects the fiat currencies because the fiat currencies are credit-based. They are, in order to create dollars or euros or what have you, they are backed by credit. So when credit collapses, you're going to have, if you want to call it, deflation and inflation at the same time. You'll have deflation of assets and deflation of the currencies, but the deflating value of the currencies will feel and look like inflation to the common man.
Right. And in my last interview with John Williams from shadowstats.com, we were talking about this hyperinflation that is just actually around the corner, if not already here. And the reason we say that is because, again, all of these numbers have been skewed, obfuscated, triple, quadruple seasonal adjustments and all of their shenanigans. And what he was saying here too is get physical gold and silver here. We're at that last hour. So we can get into the physical gold and silver part of all of this here, Bill. How do you understand? Okay, so maybe let's backtrack here. I wanted to show this video here of Charles de Gaulle, who in the 60s was calling a bluff basically on the Americans. I don't need to play the clip, it's in French, but he was essentially saying, hey, you guys are printing more money than the gold you have in depository, and it's not fair, and we want our gold back. And of course, de Gaulle at that time was treated as a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist. It took a couple of years, but he was eventually vindicated when Nixon did that famous speech on that Sunday night, taking us off of the gold standard. Now, how do you understand, I had Jim Willey on the show last week, how do you understand the mechanism of the petrodollar and how all of that edifice is also supported by the manipulation of precious metals, gold and silver? Explain to the audience how nebulous and how actually very fragile that equation truly is.
Okay, well, I think the best way to look at that is via the alternative. Gold and silver are the alternative or direct competitor, if you will, to the dollar. Let's go back before 1968. Let's go back to the early 1920s with Weimar Germany. Back then, there were still nations all over the world that were connected. Their currencies were connected or backed by gold. So back then, the Germans didn't have to go out and buy gold directly. What they could do is they could go to their bank and say, okay, take these Reichmarks and I want to buy Swiss francs or British pounds or what have you. So back then there were alternatives. In today's world, there is no alternative. There is no gold or silver-backed currency anywhere on the planet. So you can't just push a button. You can't go to your bank and say, well, I got $1 million in the bank. I want to transfer it to XYZ currency that's gold-backed. You have to actually do it yourself and move into gold and silver yourself. Now, to speak to the manipulation, that's very simple. And we've talked about this for 15, 20 years. The whole idea to create the confidence and keep the confidence in the dollar is to harm the competitor, and the competitor is gold. Gold basically is the exact opposite of the dollar. It's real. So if you can suppress the price of gold, or if you can cause waterfall days of $25, $50, even $100 down days in gold, the press, the media, the government, they can point at the action. They can point at the chart and say, look at this chart. Gold is dangerous. Gold is bad. Keep your money in dollars. Dollars are good. And that's the reasoning behind the why of the manipulation. The how is very simple also. It's being done with paper, with derivatives. All they need is $1 and they can control over $100 worth of gold. And of course, they can print that $1.
Right. That's what's very frustrating about that whole game, because we're trying to get into fundamentals. We're trying to get into the gold to silver ratio coming out of the ground, but none of that makes any sense when, on the other hand, you have somebody putting their finger on the scale, and of course, as you just said here, creating paper out of thin air to do those exact games. Let's get into some timing a little bit here. When David Morgan reposted this Gunlock article from Zero Hedge, Cliff Hyde picked it up also, and he says, yes, I believe the silver guru is correct here, but he says, my understanding is that the reserve currency will be dead or gone by March of 22, but the next paragraph is what I want you to focus on. He said, most of the big damage, the meltdown, should happen in November of this year. So what are you and the folks at jsmindset.com tracking right now that might give us an indication as to why October or November?
Well, just look what's happened in the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks. You've had Afghanistan, you've had the Russia-Saudi Arabia deal, you've got China basically laughing at us publicly. And on top of that, we're in a debt situation that cannot be solved. There's no mathematical way that the debt can be paid back without at least a massive devaluation of the dollar, if not call it a jubilee. So I think, speculating that the timing will be October, November, just look around you. It looks like it's very well could be.
Okay, very good. And the other thing I wanted to bring up with you, with respect to this agreement with Russia, there are some that are suggesting that all this is, of course, planned by whoever's in control. And you and Jim have talked about the idea that we might see 3 subsequent resets here. The first one would fail, and then we would have another, and then another. But in order to do 2 resets, okay. But in order to have those 2 resets, chess pieces would have to be moved across the board. So perhaps this Saudi Arabia rescinding of the deal is one of those chess pieces. And the other one here also was this little baby, the Basel III agreement coming into effect on June 28th of this year. Set that into the picture here for the audience. What does this also mean here as we're looking at perhaps going back to some sort of gold or silver or bimetallic standard here moving forward after the death of the petrodollar here? How does this tie in?
First off, Basel III doesn't fully take effect until December 31st, as I understand it. The British banks are not, they don't have to abide by Basel III until, call it January 1st. As far as the timing of this, we believe that there's going to be 2 resets. The first reset will be man-made, and it'll be made by men who are men and women, whatever, made by people that are in control today, and it will leave them in control. For instance, it might, it very well might be an IMF reset where the SDR is used to settle trade. That will fail because it will not address the debt problem. Then when that fails and you see a collapse of that, then you'll see Mother Nature take over. That's the second reset. That's the real reset. And that will hold. And the reason I say that will hold is because people are not going to accept new currencies if they're not backed by anything. They have to have confidence in whatever new currencies that come forth. They can't just come out with a new XYZ currency because it has to be believed in. There has to be confidence. And after the first crash/reset, and then that reset crashes, you're going to have scared people that will not put their capital anywhere unless they absolutely believe in it and absolutely can know that there's something real behind it. The fairy tale is going to end. That's the bottom line.
Right. Well, speaking of fairy tale endings, this is a remote viewing session from the guys at Crypto Viewing. It was done last year, and unbeknownst to them, they had been tasked to read the Death of the Dollar event. And in this sketch from Dick Algier, just had him on the show here, he was suggesting that he saw this ornate building. It looked like Congress, a congressman hunching over, puking, sobbing, and all of this in relation to this sense of maybe adjourning for the last time, a transfer of power, shock, disbelief, or all the words that were coming out here. And I wanted to cue you on that because I'm of the sneaky impression that this might have already occurred, and you and I have just not been told yet. What we're seeing now is the old financial system, if you want to call it a train, slowing down, and there's this new one on the other track right next to it moving forward. And at some point, people will just realize that the old train is no longer moving. And if they haven't moved their assets over, like Rob Kirby was saying, they're the last man standing there, using these toilet paper money derivatives. What do you think? Has this event already occurred, and we're seeing really a big show right now on TV, a pretend situation as we're moving through the 2 systems, or is that yet to come?
Well, it's a big show, and I won't say that it has occurred, although the money printing and the debt buildup has occurred, but the process is occurring. And I mean, I can't speak for Rob, but I think what he's getting at is if you're not already on that other train, by the time it starts to take off, you're not going to, there's no way to get back on it. And I think what he's talking about is at some point in time, gold and silver will not be available for sale for fiat currency. Now, I think you'll always be able to buy gold with silver, and I think you'll always be able to buy silver with gold. But I do believe that the day of default, the delivery default, is very close. And you're actually seeing that even in the retail space. Junk has gone, we've gone now 5 days without being able to source junk silver. And junk is always the canary in the coal mine because it hasn't been minted since 1964. So what I'm getting at is, I think what Rob's talking about is you have to have your gold and silver before this happens. Otherwise, it will not be available to you.
Well, speak about that here and the premiums also. I had Andy Sheckman on for the weekly precious metals report last week, and he was saying exactly what you're saying now too. We can't find junk silver, and the premiums for junk is higher, the same, or if not higher than for silver eagles right now, which has never been seen before. A lot of the times you can get the junk silver for just a little bit under spot. So things have changed here very, very quickly. And on top of that, what Andy was saying, and I want to have your thoughts on this, he's saying that what he's seeing also is that these big sovereign and wealth funds, these big houses, they're taking physical gold and silver off of the COMEX, the LBMA, at the most rapid clip he's ever seen in history. So perhaps these people are front running this decision that either is to come or that has already happened but has not yet been announced. So speak to those things, the premiums right now, the availability to source, and what you're hearing from your contacts here about all of these big money, or what people call the smart money, taking all of the physical off the market before everybody notices. What's going on?
Right. Well, that's the big sovereigns are taking it directly from refiners. They're taking it directly from mines. The big sovereigns are, you're not seeing that in retail. It's a totally different market. To speak to junk, in my opinion, and I've written a few articles on this, junk, hands down, is the best form of ownership. For so many reasons. You can go to JS Mindset and pull the article up, Why Junk Silver. Junk, up until about 5 or 6 years ago, always carried the highest premium. It was higher than Eagles even. And then all of a sudden in 2015, 16, the premium started to go away. And the premiums on Eagles actually started to perk up a little bit. So for the last 4 or 5 years, Eagles have always been more expensive than junk. And you were able to buy junk 2 years ago. I think you were able to buy junk at 50 cents or 75 cents over spot. And Eagles at the time were probably $2.75 or $3, something like that. Now, just in the last 3 weeks, the premiums have started to perk up on junk, and the premiums have come down somewhat on Eagles because the mint has been supplying some Eagles. So we're very close to parity now between junk and Eagles, and I would expect if this continues a month from now, 2-3 months from now, and especially in a reset, junk silver is going to be more valuable than Eagles because, for instance, if you've got dimes, you have 14 transactions for one silver Eagle. With quarters, you've got not quite 6 transactions. The idea is it's broken down to small units. For instance, a dime has always equaled roughly a dozen eggs, or a gallon of gas, or what have you. But if you use a silver Eagle, how are you going to get change? And then, of course, if you use gold, that's to transport your capital. I did have a conversation last week regarding this with Andy, regarding the demand. And it's important to understand that if a family office, and I don't know how many there might be 2,500 or 5,000 family offices, maybe more across the country. So you're talking big wealth. And all you would need is one family office to say, I don't want gold bars. I don't want silver bars. I want coin. And we speculated that an order of roughly $200 million would pretty much clean out the entire retail space in the US, in North America. Maybe it's 500 million, maybe it's a billion. I don't really know what the number is, but a billion in today's world is not even a ham sandwich. And the point being, there are individual family offices that could clean out the entire retail industry today, and tomorrow morning you wake up and you find out, oh, there's no gold and there's no silver to be bought. And that is going to happen. I mean, it's math at this point, because they're printing money and creating asset values, if you will, for people to liquidate into, to transfer over to gold and silver. They're actually printing money so much faster than gold and silver are being produced.
Mm-hmm. Andy was just talking about his conversation with his dad last week, and it kind of goes to what you're talking about now. What do you do, Andy, if you get that order for the, $500 million in silver coins here? Do you fill that order? What happens the next day? Can you even get more supply after that? Is it game over? Have you thought that through? And Andy was saying, I didn't know how to answer that. That is the conundrum here. And a lot of silver dealers are going to be in that exact same position here. And perhaps some of them already are. We're seeing some dislocations in the silver market everywhere right now. So what do you think would happen in that case? Would dealers just say, no, I'm shutting down the door and I'm waiting to see what's going on and why this event is happening, and perhaps we're going to see a doubling or tripling of the price tomorrow? Play that out. Play that scenario out for the audience here.
Well, what that will do is that will scare it will scare dealers. It will scare dealers into thinking, wait a minute, if I sell what I have now, then I won't have any supply. And if it's all being bought now, it's probably going to be bought tomorrow and the next day and the next day. What it'll do is it'll create a momentum trade where it's just human nature. When man can't get something, they want it even worse. I mean, look at anything. Look at toilet paper. When you can't get something, even if you don't need it, you want it. I mean, that's just human nature. And I really believe that an event like that would send gold and silver into hiding. And I think it would go into deep hiding, because where this whole system is, where the whole situation is, how crazy it is, the one thing you can know is that gold and silver are truth. They are real money. All they are is proof of labor, capital, and equipment used to create those coins. And all you have to do is turn on the TV, look on the internet, whatever, and you'll see 100 things from the media, and pretty much 100 of them are falsehoods. And I think what's going to happen is it's going to scare an event like that would just scare gold and silver totally into hiding, and thus would not be sold for fiat.
Going into hiding, let me ask you this question. In the last couple of weeks, as we're doing these shows, I see this recurring question for the audience, and they're all asking, Jean-Claude, do you think it's possible? Are we going to see with this event maybe an attempt from officialdom to confiscate gold and silver? And if so, Bill, how would that even look like today? We are not the same people we were when it happened the last time. And we don't have the same confidence in our governments and in our media that we had the last time they attempted this. How does that play out in your mind?
Right. Well, first off, it depends on where you are. I mean, if they wanted to confiscate gold and silver in Australia, what's to stop them? They already gave up their guns. So who's going to stop them from doing it? Who's going to stop the police from going door to door? In the United States, there still is a Second Amendment. And I'm going to say 50% or more of the population, I think it's a lot higher than that, but 50% or more of the population have guns and believe in the Second Amendment. So I don't think you'd ever see a door-to-door confiscation in the United States, because you'd see too much bloodshed. Now, they could try to tax it. They could try to outlaw it. Jim, my partner, Jim Sinclair, spoke to this back in, I think it was 2017, that he does believe there will be a confiscation, where they won't go door to door, but they're going to make it illegal to own, illegal to transfer. But he believes that if you have U.S. mint lineage coin, in other words, eagles, in particular, the Liberties and St. Gaudens, silver eagles or junk silver, that was issued by the U.S. Mint. So it would be more likely that if they were going to try to outlaw gold and silver, what they would do is they'd say anybody who is hoarding bullion, which means generics, bars, foreign sovereigns, those would be illegal. I think it's best to go one step further with gold to the Liberties and St. Gaudens rather than just the eagles, because there's already case law that graded Liberties and St. Gaudens are considered collectibles. So you're not a hoarder of gold. What you are is you're a coin collector, and even if you've got 1,000 or 5,000, however many gold ounces you have, you can legally say, this is my coin collection. I am not a gold hoarder. And that's why if you go back to 2010, when gold was $1,000 an ounce, and there was fear that Obama was going to confiscate gold, you could sell back to dealers an MS-63 Liberty for $1,800. You were getting an 80% premium. And the reason being there was massive demand into the Liberties and St. Gaudens to try to hide from the confiscation because they are considered collectibles. And at this point, you're only looking at a 5, 6, 7, 8% difference between an Eagle and say an MS-63 Lib or a 64 Saint. So paying that additional, think of it as an insurance premium, that you're in a confiscation, that insurance premium will expand greatly. You're on mute.
Sorry about that again.
You're on mute.
On the screen right now, there's a question. Will silver also be confiscated? And in my last interview with Cliff High, we talked about this. And Cliff was like, silver right now, in his view, like we've talked about this many times from his WebBot data, just to set the record here for this audience if they haven't heard it, he has been predicting that $600 silver per ounce target for quite some time. And if you look at the temporal markers of the events that are happening now, they all coincide with those reports that are dating from 2017 or 18. And many of those things have already occurred, including the $64,000 Bitcoin, which was supposed to happen in that same year of the $600 silver. But that being said here, I asked Cliff about silver and whether or not it would be confiscated. And he said, well, he sees that the government would try to put up a lot of schemes to maybe convince you to sell your silver here. And he said those people who resist those schemes and who hold on to silver will be in a position to transfer generational wealth down their family line. So he was suggesting to the audience, hold on tight, whatever you need to do, we're almost there. So speak to that. Maybe we just talked about the gold confiscation, but how do you see that maybe perhaps happening with silver, seeing as also it could be seen as a strategic metal for defense, for technology, not just for monetary supply here? What are your thoughts, Bill?
It's less likely that silver would be confiscated because there's less gain, if you will, for the government. There's more wealth in gold than there is in silver. And you're correct. If there were to be a confiscation in silver, I'm sure that the reasoning that, you have to do your patriotic duty, we need it for our military, we need it for national strategic defense, I'm sure that would be the avenue that they'd go after. As far as I'm concerned, they could pretty much do or say whatever they want to do or say. I bought it when it's legal, and you cannot outlaw God's money. I'm a Christian. It's God's money. I paid for it. It's mine. I'm not giving it up.
What was that famous quote? I'll respond to you from the guns of my cannons or something like that. I'm trying to remember who said that, but you're sounding like that right now, so I appreciate that. Bill, anything else here on your radar and the folks at JS Mindset here? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, we could be talking about vaccines and my blood pressure would go up even more.
Right. That's a whole other topic, and we can't get into that here without getting into trouble, Bill.
I'll get you canceled again.
Fourth time the charm, maybe. All right, Bill, as we round up the show today, is there anything else? And I want to bring up your website here, but I'll get to that at the end, and your services here as a bullion dealer yourself. But what are you guys tracking right now at jsmindset.com? I know you have your weekly calls. What's on your radar, and what are you giving your audience members right now to try to help navigate maybe the next couple of months here? What can we tell this audience here and give them an inkling here as what you get of the work you guys do at jsmindset.com?
Well, really, the most pressing thing that people need to do is get yourself prepared. Prepare yourself so that you are as self-reliant as you possibly can. I mean, obviously, having enough capital to make yourself self-reliant. If you had unlimited funds, you could build yourself a ranch or an island or whatever where you've got everything you need. And that, that's not really realistic because nobody has unlimited money. But the idea is just do the best you can to become as self-reliant as you can. And I mean, the reasons are pretty obvious because the system, if you will, is stacked against you. So you want to try to get out of that system as much as possible. If you can afford to set up generators, solar, what have you, have the ability to purify water, have the ability to grow crops. If you're, if you're in a warm climate, if you're in a cold climate, I mean, you could grow crops in the summertime and you'd have to heat a greenhouse. But the idea is try to become as self-reliant as possible. Put food back. The rule of thumb is get yourself ready for a 6-month span. But if you can do more than that, if you can do a year or 2 years, you'll be one of the last few standing, because it's going to get ugly.
Yeah, a lot of people are forecasting that, and of course, the remote viewers now are all of them. They all came up with these mushroom clouds for the month of September. So where that is and what that means, nobody really knows here. But definitely, the rhetoric and the war drums are beating all around the planet here. And as Gerald Salente says, usually, when all else fails, they bring you to war. So being prepped is absolutely a good thing. So Jim, talk about the subscription service here at jsmindset.com. I have on the screen for the audience here just a snapshot of the weekly audio calls that you guys produce every week. And of course, you have a lot of writing there. So explain to the audience what this subscription is worth and what comes with it.
Sure. As it stands right now, we have a public side where we post articles and we put comments to it. We have a subscription side where we post written articles, and we do at least a 1-hour call per week, and we talk about, basically current events. This past weekend, we spoke about everything that you and I just spoke about, except for the Russian deal, and that we'll be talking about that this coming week. Shortly, and I can't tell you exactly when because we're still relying on our tech people to revamp the website, if you will. We're going to become a full subscription service, so the only way you'll be able to get in is via subscription, and we're doing that for basically the same reasons. You've been kicked off of platform after platform. We want to control our own destiny. We want to be able to tell the truth, all the truth. We want to be able to let loose and tell people what we think. And at this point on the public side, we really can't do that because, you get attacked. So shortly, I'm guessing within the next 30 to 60 days, will be full subscription. As it stands right now, our subscription is $179 for the year.
Okay. Very good. And I have to say to the audience, I've been a member of the JS Mindset, Bill HOLTER and Jim Sinclair collaboration since they started, and I absolutely love the weekend calls. Just that is enough to be worth the total ticket price here. And on top of that, you have all the weekly writings. So guys, I really recommend you give that a try. And in the meantime, also, if you're looking for physical gold and silver, of course, Hi-Ho Silver, a man and his horse here. The legendary Bill HOLTER, of course, can help you find whatever you need. So speak about that right now. What are you seeing in terms of your clients? What are they looking for? And what do you have in terms of availability here for the clients who might want to contact you directly to source some silver and gold? Bill.
We do it in gold. I mean, basically gold is still available. I don't know how deep the Liberties for St. Gaudens are, but we do have some availability. Junk, we've been out of junk now for 5 days, 6 days. I think it was Monday or Tuesday of last week, I did something like 35 or 40 bags of junk. And Andy called me, he said, that's it. He goes, we're out. And we had 1 day where a little bit came back in and that was gone, and boom. And I primarily guide people toward junk silver because, as I mentioned, I believe it's the best form. And we do have a decent supply of silver eagles. And the premiums, except for junk, the premiums have either held steady or come down slightly over the last, say, 2 months.
Okay, very good. And so folks can reach you at bholter@hotmail.com if they want to have you support them in finding their precious physical gold and silver. Okay, that's great. And maybe for the new audience here, I absolutely love this painting. I brought it up for a reason. Can you share with the new audience here where this painting comes from, who did it, and who's actually sitting on the horse? The people might not know where the provenance is here.
Well, that's my horse, Principe. That's me. My wife took about 20 pictures doing that. And I actually went on the internet one night and tried to look up Zorro and just different pictures rearing up. And if you look at the angles of his legs, they're absolutely perfect. Out of the 2,000 I looked at, this was the best. And the reason she took the pictures, she painted that with pastel with only 2 years experience. And that is a master portrait. That's not a photograph. That is a actual painting.
Absolutely incredible. I really love it. Well, thank you so much, Bill. Any last words of wisdom here for the audience as we navigate here the death of the dollar and the introduction of this first and perhaps soon to come second reset? What can you tell the audience before we go here today?
Just get yourself prepared. Be prepared mentally, physically, financially, spiritually. Just try to get your life in order as best you can and be ready for whatever comes.
Well, there you go, folks. That's simple enough. I really love that. And of course, tomorrow coming up on this continuation of the series of the death of the petrodollar is Mr. Bix Weir. He will be here at 3 o'clock Eastern time on Wednesday, September 8th. So please join us for that. So thank you so much, Bill, for your time here. And thank you so much for all of your work here at jsmindset.com. Absolutely love having you on. And thank you so much to the audience for joining us here today. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you soon. God bless everyone and live long and prosper. Au revoir.